The arrival. Dust trailed behind Ethan Cole as his boots struck the dry earth of the Whitfield ranch. The long road had burned the color from his clothes and the patience from his heart, but he had come with a single purpose: to buy a horse and move on. The ranch sprawled wide beneath the blazing sky, fences stretching like ribs of a slumbering beast. Somewhere inside, a deal awaited. Somewhere deeper, something else stirred, a tension he could not yet name. Samuel Whitfield met him at the gate. A man of 45, broad-shouldered and immaculately dressed, Samuel carried authority as naturally as he carried the weight of his ranch. His handshake was firm, his expression harder still. "You're here for the stallion," he said, voice flat, without the courtesy of welcome. Ethan nodded. "If the price matches the promise." Samuel's lips twitched. Not a smile, merely the faintest acknowledgement of challenge. He gestured toward the corral. "You'll see the animal. We breed for strength, not show." The walk across the yard told Ethan more about the man than words could. The fences were mended with precision, the barn doors aligned like soldiers in formation. Yet the house, standing proud at the center, felt less like a home and more like a fortress. Windows shut tight, curtains drawn against the sun, silence pressing from within. It was there that Ethan first saw Clara Whitfield. She stood by the veranda, sunlight catching the pale fabric of her dress. Her posture was graceful, her gaze steady, yet her eyes carried shadows deeper than the shade of the house behind her. When her eyes found Ethan, something unspoken lingered, a quiet recognition, a silent question. Samuel noticed. His hand brushed against Ethan's shoulder, firm enough to redirect attention. "This way," he said, leading him toward the corral. But Ethan's mind carried the image of Clara, etched sharper than he intended. The stallion proved worthy of its reputation. A dark-coated brute with a fiery mane, it stamped the ground as though impatient for battle. Ethan admired its power, though Samuel's voice cut through his thoughts. "Price is fair. No haggling. You want it, you'll pay." Ethan weighed his words, but before he could speak, a new voice joined the air, bright, teasing, untamed. "You make it sound like robbery, Uncle." Lydia Whitfield bounded into view, skirts dust-streaked from running across the yard. 16, though already carrying the sharpness of someone who noticed more than she should, Lydia eyed Ethan with a mix of curiosity and mischief. "You look like the kind of man who won't pay a coin more than he has to," she said. Samuel's jaw tightened. "Mind your tongue, girl." But Lydia only laughed, her eyes never leaving Ethan. "Strangers bring stories, Uncle. Don't you want to hear them?" Ethan offered her the faintest smile, though he sensed the weight of Samuel's gaze. He had walked into a place of order and iron, yet cracks showed in the stone. Clara's silence, Lydia's boldness, signs of a household strained beneath its master's hand. As Samuel led the stallion closer, Ethan caught Clara's eyes again. She lingered at the veranda's edge, as though tethered there by duty. Her gaze flickered with something that was not merely curiosity. Hunger, perhaps, or loneliness. The moment stretched, fragile, until Lydia's voice cut through once more. "Careful, traveler. Secrets run deeper here than wells, and sometimes they drown those who lean too close." Samuel barked her name, sharp as a whip. She shrank back, lips sealed, though her eyes glimmered with warning. Ethan kept his expression steady, though the words rooted inside him. Secrets, a family stitched together with silence. He had only come for a horse, yet already the air pressed with untold stories. The sun dipped lower, bleeding fire across the sky. Samuel named his price with finality, daring refusal. Ethan agreed, though unease lingered. A transaction was closing, but another door, one he had not meant to touch, was creaking open. As he prepared to take the stallion, Clara's voice finally broke the silence. Soft, deliberate, it carried across the yard. "You'll find the road long, Mr. Cole. Be certain the horse you choose is worth the journey." Her words, simple on the surface, struck deeper. Beneath them lay an invitation, or perhaps a warning. Ethan inclined his head, offering nothing but acknowledgement. Yet inside, he felt the stir of conflict. He had survived battlefields, endured loneliness, and fled from chains of memory. Now, in a place where he sought only a beast to carry him forward, he found himself drawn instead toward chains of a different kind. As the evening shadows lengthened, he understood one truth. He was no longer merely a buyer. He was part of something unseen, and whatever it was, it had already begun to claim him. The hidden flame. The morning broke with a pale light that clung to the fields, mist curling low along the fences. Ethan remained at the Whitfield ranch longer than intended, for Samuel had insisted on final tests before releasing the stallion. A man who guarded every coin, Samuel demanded proof of endurance, obedience, and speed. For Ethan, the delay was inconvenient. For Clara, it became opportunity. She moved quietly through the yard, carrying baskets, as if duty demanded her presence where Ethan worked. Yet her glances betrayed her. Each time her eyes lingered, Ethan felt the pull of an unspoken current. He told himself to ignore it. He had learned long ago that some fires, once sparked, left nothing but ruin. Samuel, oblivious or pretending to be, measured Ethan with suspicion rather than jealousy. He spoke often of bloodlines and breeding, his voice devoid of warmth. Clara endured his lectures with polite silence, though her hands trembled whenever her husband brushed too close. Ethan noticed, and the sight hardened something inside him. At midday, Clara approached him by the well. She offered a cup of water, though the distance between them carried more weight than the gesture itself. "You travel often," she said, her voice low. "Do you ever wish to stay?" Ethan drank, buying time. The road doesn't grant wishes. It only takes you where you must go. Her eyes searched his face, as if trying to measure whether he spoke from choice or from chains. He felt her gaze like a hand against his chest. He wanted to turn away, yet her quiet desperation bound him still. Before he could answer, Lydia appeared, darting from behind the barn with her hair unkempt, her smile mischievous. "Uncle will grow suspicious if you linger," she teased, though her eyes held a sharper edge. "Careful, Mr. Cole. My aunt's heart is tender, and tender things break easily." Clara's composure faltered. "Lydia," but the girl only twirled, skirts brushing dust, and vanished back toward the house. Ethan felt the tension coiled between them, a thread stretched too tight. Clara's voice dropped to a whisper. "She sees more than she should." That evening, the negotiations dragged. Samuel insisted on one final demonstration, forcing Ethan to ride the stallion until sweat darkened both horse and man. When the trial ended, Samuel dismissed them with a gruff nod, retiring to his ledgers. Ethan led the horse back to the stable, shoulders aching, when he realized Clara had followed. The barn was dim, lanterns casting soft shadows across the beams. Clara stepped inside, her breath uneven, her hands clasped as if to still them. "I shouldn't be here," she began, though she did not retreat. "But I cannot keep silent." Ethan turned, caught by the intensity of her gaze. She was not the fragile figure he had glimpsed from afar, but a woman carrying years of silence pressed against her chest. "Clara." She closed the distance, her words rushing out like water breaking free. "Do you know what it is to live unseen? To be spoken to as one speaks to stone? Samuel sees his land, his animals, his name. But he does not see me. Not once." Her voice trembled, yet her resolve sharpened with every syllable. "And then you arrive, and suddenly I remember what it feels like to be alive." Ethan should have stopped her. Every lesson of survival screamed against this moment. Yet when her hand brushed his, the fire he had tried to smother roared to life. He caught her wrist, intending to push her away, but the touch became an anchor. Their eyes locked, and all pretense crumbled. The kiss was inevitable, soft at first, then fierce, as though years of restraint had broken in an instant. Clara clung to him, her breath mingling with his, the taste of forbidden longing thick in the air. For Ethan, the world shrank to the curve of her lips, the press of her body, the dangerous sweetness of surrender. A sound shattered the moment, the creak of a floorboard outside the barn. They broke apart, breaths ragged, hearts racing. Clara's face blanched. Lydia's silhouette flickered across the doorway, though she did not enter. Instead, her voice drifted through the wood, quiet yet sharp enough to pierce. Secrets never stay buried in. Silence followed. Clara pressed her hands to her face, torn between shame and desire. Ethan's pulse thundered, his instincts urging flight, yet his heart betrayed him with longing. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "This road leads to ruin, Clara." Her hands fell, revealing eyes shimmering with both fear and defiance. "Then let it. For once, let ruin be mine to choose." The words left Ethan shaken, his certainty fractured. He had faced battlefields where death loomed without mercy, yet nothing unsettled him like the choice before him now. Outside, the night deepened, stars cloaking the ranch in silence. Inside, in a fragile shelter of shadows, Ethan and Clara stood on the edge of betrayal, their fates already entangled. Neither dared speak further, for both knew the flame they had kindled would not be easily extinguished. The secret unveiled. Night settled heavy over the Whitfield ranch, the kind of darkness that seemed to listen. Ethan lay awake in the small guest room Samuel had offered, though the walls pressed like prison bars. Sleep refused him. Clara's kiss lingered, an ember scorching every thought. He told himself he should leave at dawn, yet his body betrayed him by waiting, by hoping. The stillness broke with a faint knock. Not Clara, as his foolish heart leapt to believe, but Lydia. She slipped inside without invitation, candle in hand, her expression sharper than her years. "You think no one notices," she said quietly. "But I see everything." Ethan sat upright, tension hardening his jaw. "You shouldn't be here, girl." Lydia smirked, though her voice carried weight. "And you shouldn't be here either, not like this. My uncle is blind to her pain, but not forever. He will sense it, and when he does, he won't forgive." Ethan stared, torn between anger and unease. "Why tell me?" The candlelight flickered across her face, revealing not mischief, but something more fragile: fear. "Because I don't want her destroyed. She deserves more than this house of silence. But if you keep pushing, you'll burn her alive." Her words struck like cold iron. Ethan had seen ruin before. Towns swallowed by war, men broken by secrets too heavy to bear. Clara's fate flashed before him, not as fantasy, but as certainty, should Samuel learn the truth. Lydia leaned closer, voice lowered to a whisper. "My uncle has his own affairs. He visits the tavern in town, spends nights away. He parades his honor in daylight, but in shadows he's no better than you. The difference is no one dares expose him." Ethan clenched his fists. Samuel's hypocrisy filled him with rage, yet it changed nothing. Clara would still be branded the betrayer. Lydia's gaze softened for a moment. "If you care for her, prove it. Don't let her gamble everything on you." Before he could reply, she extinguished the candle and vanished, leaving him with darkness and a choice. The following days stretched taut with unspoken tension. Ethan tried to keep distance, bury himself in preparing the stallion for travel. Yet every glance toward the house betrayed him. Clara watched from windows, her silence louder than words. When they crossed paths in the yard, her eyes asked questions his tongue refused to answer. One evening, Samuel announced he would ride to town for business, his voice curt, his presence heavier than ever. As his horse carried him away, the ranch exhaled relief. Clara seized the moment, slipping into the barn where Ethan worked. Her voice trembled, though her body stood firm. "Do you regret it?" Ethan turned, breath caught between denial and truth. "Regret doesn't change what's been done." She stepped closer, the lantern glow catching her face. "Then don't deny it. Don't pretend it was nothing. You've reminded me that I am alive, Ethan. Do you know what that means to someone buried in silence?" He reached for her, though guilt coiled tight in his chest. "Clara, this can't last. Lydia knows. Samuel will know soon enough. If he learns, he'll destroy you, not himself." Her hands gripped his, desperate. "Then take me away. I'd rather live in ruin with you than die slowly here." Ethan's resolve faltered. He had walked into the ranch as a drifter, bound to nothing. Yet Clara had become more than temptation. She was a mirror of his own longing, for freedom, for love unchained by duty or fear. A rustle at the barn door snapped them apart. Lydia stood in the shadows, arms folded, eyes fierce. If you truly mean to run, you'll need more than courage. My uncle will hunt you both. He values his name more than blood. Clara stiffened, but Lydia's expression softened again, almost protective. I won't betray you, but secrets demand payment. If you stay, you'll all drown. If you go, perhaps there's a chance. The barn fell silent. Ethan felt the weight of both women's gazes. Clara's filled with hope, Lydia's heavy with warning. His chest ached with the burden of choice. He had lived by instinct, never roots, never ties. Yet here, he found himself ensnared not by chains, but by longing. He finally spoke, his voice low, ragged. If we run, there's no return. Clara's answer came swift, fierce. Then let there be no return. Lydia's lips pressed into a thin line. Then you'd better prepare, because the walls of this house don't keep secrets, they bury them. Her words hung like a prophecy, and with them, the path ahead darkened. Ethan realized the central truth at last. This was no longer about desire. It was about survival, and survival would demand sacrifice. The departure. Dawn broke with a crimson sky. Clouds stretched thin like torn cloth. Ethan saddled the stallion in silence, every movement deliberate, heavy with decision. His mind reeled with Clara's plea, Lydia's warning, and Samuel's looming shadow. Freedom lay beyond the horizon, yet to seize it meant carrying Clara into ruin or leaving her behind to wither in silence. The ranch stirred awake. Samuel's return from town was imminent, and time felt like a tightening noose. Clara appeared at the barn door, her dress hastily thrown on, hair unpinned. Her eyes carried both terror and resolve. "You're leaving," she whispered, as if the words themselves might shatter. Ethan met her gaze, the weight of honesty pressing hard. "I should have left yesterday, but here I am." She stepped closer, desperation quickening her breath. "Then take me. Don't let me rot here. You spoke of survival. Ethan, help me survive." Her hands grasped his arm, her touch trembling with both fear and fire. He wanted nothing more than to pull her onto the horse and ride into the rising sun. Yet Lydia's voice echoed in his mind. "If you stay, you'll all drown." A sharp sound outside, the crunch of hooves. Samuel had returned. Ethan's chest tightened as the moment fractured. Clara's eyes widened. "He cannot find us together. Not now." They retreated deeper into the barn, shadows clinging like conspirators. Samuel's boots struck the earth with measured force as he entered the yard. His voice, low and controlled, carried across the air. "Clara, Ethan, come out." Ethan stiffened. Clara gripped his hand, trembling. Lydia appeared at the side door, face pale but determined. She whispered fiercely, "Go. Now, I'll keep him from following for a time." Clara looked between them, torn. "Lydia," but the girl's eyes hardened. "Don't waste this. If you mean to leave, then leave. Before he sees." Ethan knew hesitation would cost them all. He seized Clara's hand, lifted her onto the stallion, and swung into the saddle beside her. The horse snorted, muscles coiled with restless power. For an instant, freedom felt within reach. Then Samuel's voice thundered from the yard. "Cole!" Ethan's grip tightened on the reins. He turned the stallion toward the open fields, meeting Samuel's gaze across the distance. The rancher's face was carved in fury, his fists clenched, his authority challenged. For a heartbeat, Ethan thought Samuel might draw his rifle. Instead, the older man stood rigid, his silence heavier than a shout. Ethan spurred the stallion forward. The barn doors burst open, the horse lunging into the morning light. Clara clung to him, her cry carried by the wind. Behind them, the ranch shrank, Lydia's figure small yet unyielding, standing guard at the threshold of ruin. The land stretched wide before them. Fields, hills, a horizon painted with promise. But as they rode, Ethan's chest hollowed with doubt. Clara pressed against him, whispering words of love, of hope, of escape. Yet in her voice lingered something fragile, almost desperate, as though she knew freedom carried a price none of them could yet name. Hours passed. When at last they slowed by a ridge, Clara lifted her face, eyes shimmering. "We did it," she breathed. "We're free." Ethan looked at her, at the lines of sorrow etched deep by years of silence. He felt the truth settle heavy. They had escaped the ranch, but not the storm it held. Samuel would not forgive. Lydia's silence might shield them only for a while. The world ahead was wide, yet filled with pursuit, judgment, and uncertainty. He brushed a strand of hair from Clara's face, his voice low. "Freedom is not the end, Clara. It's the beginning, and beginnings are never safe." Her smile trembled, caught between joy and fear. "Then let be dangerous. At least it will be ours." The stallion stamped, eager for the road. Ethan tightened his hold on the reins, on Clara, on the fragile hope they carried. Behind them, the Whitfield ranch remained a wound left open, a secret Lydia now bore alone. As the sun climbed higher, Ethan realized their journey was not an escape, but an exile. And though love had carried them away, the shadow of betrayal would ride with them always. Still, he urged the horse onward, because to stay was death, and to ride was life, even if it was only borrowed.